Hey everyone, this is Andrew Nagel with the next part of the start to finish ring design. Here I'm going to show you how we do the more flowy, swirly side of the ring as well as the weave detailing for these smaller faceted topaz that we're going to be using. So for the wires that we're going to be using in this tutorial are going to be the 22 gauge half hard half round sterling silver and then the 30 gauge dead soft round wire. I use the dead soft for my smallest gauge, the 30 gauge. I just find it's easier to weave in between tighter spaces with the dead soft versus the half hard. I use the half hard for basically all of my other gauges just because I feel that it gives the piece a bit more stability. So the first thing we're going to do is cut off two lengths about 6 inches each of the half round wire. We're going to use that to set the stones into the weave that we build with the 30 gauge. I've also taken one of the base wires, the 20 gauge or 21 gauge square, whichever you used, that we're using for this kind of swirl design. I've taken one of those wires and bent it down past the opal just so that way it's kind of running along the side of the opal and below the rest of the wires. And I'm going to set my 30 gauge on that wire that's kind of below the rest of them, and then I'm going to bring it up and start building a X weave between the opening of the closest wire to the opal and then the third wire in that run. And so once I've built about a centimeter or so of that X weave pattern between those two wires, I'm going to start setting the half round wire into that. And so now we're going to utilize that wire that we've bent down past the opal, and I'm going to set the 21 gauge onto that wire by twisting them around the wire and tightening them as tight as I can to the point where they pass through that X weave. And then I'm going to scrunch it up with the pliers onto that wire and make sure it's nice and secure. These wires are going to run over the top of our stones and keep them secure on the X-weave pattern. And so then we're going to take the other length of that half round wire and feed it through and connect it to the wire that runs along that opal. This wire will give the opal some security, and then it also acts as a stabilizing wire for some of our connections, being the half round wire that we're connecting right now. Going to give them 3 or 4 turns around that wire, clip off my extra, and then tighten them up again. Now we're ready to continue on with our X-weave. We're going to then tie in these two half round wires into this weave pattern. I'm going to wrap it around the half round and then back over and under the next base wire on the right side, and then from that side I'm going to wrap it twice around that base wire and then back over and underneath those middle two half round wires. Then I'm going to wrap it twice around those half round wires again, and then back under to the left base wire and connect it around the base wire twice. Then I'm going to do that pattern again, just so that way there's some really good solid connections on those half round wires. I don't like connecting it once in the weave, I connect it 2 or 3 times into the weave. And then after I have weaved those half round wires into our X weave pattern, I'm going to lift up the half round wires so that way it exposes the X-weave pattern that I'm working on. It kind of makes it a little bit easier, and that way I can see how much of a pattern I'm building. I only want to build as wide of a platform here as the width of the stone is that we're using. So I'm utilizing 2 or 2.2 millimeter stones, so this is only going to be about a 2 millimeter platform that I'm building here. Once I've built it to about that width, I'm going to incorporate the outside base wire just to have that as another kind of detailing and stabilizing wire that runs along the outside of this ring detail. So now we're ready to incorporate some stones. I'm going to bring one of the stones onto the platform, and then we're going to fold down our half round wire over that stone. I kind of pinch everything in place with my finger, and then I make a little eyelet over the stone by weaving these two half round wires over each other and then weaving them back into the X-weave pattern just as we had before this stone. I do a connection point before and after every single stone. So again, we're going from one of the base wires, either the left side or the right side. It doesn't matter which side you start on. And then we're going to take the 30 gauge wire and wrap it underneath the half round wires, twice around those half round wires, and then over to the other base wire, twice around that base wire, back over and underneath the half round wires, twice around the half round wires again, and then back over to the other base wire and twice around that, and then repeat that pattern once or twice again. Like I said earlier, I like to do 2 or 3 connections, you know, between every single stone, and at the beginning of this channel setting and at the end of this channel setting as well. So now we're going to continue on and build the next platform, so that way we can set our final, or our next 2 stones in there. Going to get the middle stone set in there, and again we're running these half round wires over that stone and then making a little eyelet by pinching everything down with our finger and then crossing over the half round wires on the other side of that stone. I just call it a little eyelet. It makes like a little kind of oval over that stone. And again, we're running that 30 gauge from one side of the base wires, underneath the 2 half round wires, twice around the half round wires, over to the other base, connect it to that base, run that wire back underneath the half round, twice around the half round, and then connect the 30 gauge back over to the other base. Repeat that process 2 or 3 times, and you'll have secured your half round wires into your X-weave very nicely, and they're not going to go anywhere. I really enjoy these settings. I feel they display the calibrated faceted stones very well. Another thing that displays these well is the tube settings, and I've released a video about that before, but if you want to see some different sorts of calibrated stone settings, just let me know in the comments of these videos. So we're going to build the next platform for our last stone. Again, we're only building a platform that is as wide as the stone is that we are utilizing. And then once we've set our stone on there, pinch it all together, cross the half round over that stone, and then incorporate it into your X-weave again. And like I said before, I like to attach it before and after the X-weave and in between every single stone. That makes everything nice and tight and secure. And then once we've secured this into our X-weave, we're going to start to tie everything together and bring the ring into its final form. So bring the 30 gauge over to our base wire on the left side. And then once I've connected it to that left side, it's time to incorporate the wire that we had running underneath this whole channel setting. We're going to bring that kind of level with our opening here. You can also push down the weave setting opening to come flush with that, and then incorporate that just like you were incorporating the half round wires into your weave pattern. After you've incorporated it in for a little bit, it's time to bring those half round wires down to the innermost base wire. We're going to wrap it around that base wire a couple of times, tie it down and connect it, and then we're going to bring the base wire to the ring band and wrap it twice around the ring band, or 3 times, however much extra silver you have on that base wire, and tighten it down to that ring band very nicely. So then what we're going to do with our final 3 wires is continue taking our 30 gauge, and we're going to continue along that curve and weave everything together and make it all nice and uniform and bring those ends together on that band as well. Make sure your half round wire is nice and tight over all of your stones, and it's nice and secure around that base wire that you connected it to. Take that plier, and you know, the silver is soft, but you can tighten it, you know, using a little bit of force. Don't go too hard, otherwise you will break it, but you do want those connections to be very secure. So continue taking that 30 gauge and wrap it around the middle wire, and then connect in the outer and inner wire as often as you like. I just ran the 30 gauge along the middle wire just to kind of get this weave all finished up to the end of this ring band here. But this is a good point to connect in like the inner and outer ones and bring them all tight together. Maybe use like a little bit of a textile or like, you know, some sort of alternating pattern between those three base wires and connect them all together. And then once I've gotten down to the end point and the ring band, I'm going to bring those ends through the opening in the ring and wrap them around the base of the ring, clip off my ends, clamp everything down really nice and tightly with the wire, clip off my other ends, just kind of push everything down, make sure the tips are nice and tucked into the band and they're kind of like facing towards the upper wires as well, so they're not sticking out and they're not sharp. I will also polish those down a little bit during the final polish just to make sure they're nice and smooth. What we're doing right now is really just making sure the connections are secure on the ring so that way nothing is going anywhere. And so yeah, that would be the final stone setting and the final detailing as well. I'm going to be doing the polishing and oxidizing in the next tutorial. It looks like it fits pretty well. If only this was my colors, I might have to keep this one. But yeah, so I will be doing the polishing and oxidizing in the next part of this tutorial. I hope you all have been enjoying this little start to finish series. I plan on doing more, and yeah, well, I hope you all have a great weekend. Please let me know your thoughts in the comments of this video, and thank you so much. Have a great day.